Hi, I'm Dr. Kevin Passero, Chief Science Officer for Durable, and today you are in my kitchen. And I'm going to go over a recipe that I often make for lunch. It may look complicated, but I can assure you I put this recipe together, cook it, and eat it, usually within the hour lunch break that I give myself in the day when I'm in between seeing patients. So I just wanted to take people through it because this recipe represents the lifestyle adjunct to a lot of the supplements that we recommend in Durable. So, for example, I have some family history of cardiovascular disease issues, like many of you out there, and utilize several of the Durable products for cardiovascular health, but they're meant to go in conjunction with a really healthy lifestyle. And this meal that we're going to go throw together today really exemplifies some of the healthiest things that you can do for cardiovascular health and blood sugar in general. So it's a pretty simple recipe. We have a bunch of things sort of already prepped. I do this really quickly on my lunch. I don't want anybody to have to see me cut and prep things during the video. So we're just going to go through. We have a can of cannellini beans and a can of garbanzo beans mixed together here. And beans are one of the heart-friendliest foods you can consume. They're associated with longevity, and they definitely help to lower cholesterol with the type of fiber that's in beans. They're very, very useful in balancing lipid levels. Some onion, some celery and carrots. That's a very classic combination for any kind of soup base. A French combination, mirepoix, I believe it's called, and that just creates a really nice base. I have some mushrooms because those are full of beta glucans and other types of health beneficial compounds. It's the middle of winter right now when I'm shooting this, so this really helps immune function and helps many other aspects of health. We have a little bit of garlic because garlic always tastes great and it confers some immune benefits, and a little bit of fresh parsley because fresh herbs always bring in a nice dimension to any kind of recipe. A can of fire roasted tomatoes, and we have some organic vegetable broth that we're going to use as well. So again, the recipe is pretty simple. I usually cut and prep this all within about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm pretty fast with the knife. We're just going to use a little bit of olive oil. What I was going to say is that the constructs of this recipe and my desire to make a simple sort of bean soup recipe come from the Blue Zones outline. So the Blue Zones are a book written by Dan Buettner. You may have seen it. It was a best-selling book for quite a while. And there's also a great Netflix series on it. And Dan Buettner was a National Geographic correspondent who was traveling the world and noticed there were areas of the world that had a large percentage of people that were living into their 90s and over 100 centenarians with excellent health. And he started studying their diet. And one of the areas is in Italy. It's in Sardinia, Italy. And there's a family there that's the longest lived family in the world. Between all the brothers and sisters, how old they are, it spans something like 600 or 700 years. And they literally eat the same thing for lunch every day. And it's a simple Italian minestrone soup that has whatever vegetables are growing in the garden, beans, and some basic spices. They usually have it with some pasta. And what we're going to do today, instead of using pasta, is I just have a little bit of rice cooking in my Instant Pot. And I usually use the rice as the base, as the starch base to kind of give it a little bit more of a filling type of feel. But if you want to use pasta, use pasta. If you want to make variations, make variations. This recipe is literally just what I can do in the hour that I have between seeing patients most days of the week. So I keep it very simple so that I can prep, cook, and eat within that hour and have a really satisfying meal. So we've got things cooking down a little bit, which is nice, just sauteing. Again, like I said, I don't usually wait all that long, so I'll have that long. Then throw the garlic in, let that do its job. And while we let the garlic saute for really just a couple minutes, just to give it a little bit of flavor before we put the broth in. I do take a lot of the durable supplements myself. Usually after this meal, there's a couple things that I do after my lunch meal typically. Ideally, if I have time, I try and get in at least a 10-minute walk. That's a great thing that you can do after eating, is just even a short walk. It helps you to burn some of the fat and sugars and calories that came in during the meal to actually distribute it to the muscles when the muscles are actually working. So I love taking a walk after work. If I can't get outside, sometimes I'll get on my walking pad, or at least I'll be at my standing desk after I eat. I do take the durable blood pressure. There's a family history of high blood pressure for me. And I find this product works really well for myself, and you can read the customer reviews. A lot of people write in as well. The cholesterol complete, we split the dosing. I take some in the afternoon and I take a little bit of a larger dose in the evening. That really helps with my lipid levels. And the durable berberine I take because this also really helps with certain types of cholesterol levels. It does help with cholesterol and blood sugar, and it definitely helps with metabolism. I don't take it for that reason specifically. I take it for a very difficult type of cholesterol to lower, which is a genetically inherited something called LP(a), which if you're interested in your cardiovascular health, you need to learn about. And we'll have other videos and other educational stuff about LP(a) coming to the Durable website soon. So make sure you pay attention to that. So that's something that I take. I usually like to take them after I eat when my stomach's full. It always works a little bit better for me that way. So those are some products that I personally take for my own cardiovascular health. So that gets hot and that's about ready. I'm going to dump the beans in. I'm going to dump the can of tomatoes in. And then we're just going to add a vegetable broth. If you want the actual recipe that I sort of adopted this from, you can buy the Blue Zone cookbook, or you can go online and look up the Blue Zones and look up the minestrone soup recipe, and it'll have it right there laid out for you. And this is just my own adoption of it. For me, it's an easy way to get in beans. Now, you can make adjustments to it in other ways. If you wanted this to be a heartier dinner, you could add in some pre-cooked chicken breast, or you could add in some other type of protein if you wanted. For me, at lunch, I like my lunches to be light, and I really like to make sure I'm getting in adequate beans. Some people tell me that they would love the idea of getting beans in, but when they eat beans, it really hurts their digestive system. And that's something that we worked on with many patients in the clinic. And that has to do with the fact that in order to break down beans, you need a very specific type of gut microbiome. And if you're not eating beans regularly, you don't have it. So most people won't eat beans consistently and then have a large serving of beans in a lentil salad or a chili bowl and feel very bloated and uncomfortable. What you need to do, if that's you, is you need to eat small amounts of beans on a regular basis to allow your gut microbiome to build up the necessary populations to actually break those resistant starches and break those carbohydrates down. If you start slowly having a small serving of beans every day, eventually you'll be able to work up to full servings and not have the digestive issues associated with consuming beans. Some people tolerate beans better, different beans better than others. Some people do really well with garbanzo beans. Some people do well with white beans. Somebody else might do better with black beans. So if you know that, you can also pick the bean that works best for your body. But getting beans in on a regular basis is one of the healthiest nutrition lifestyle things that you can do to support things like cardiovascular health and even blood sugar levels. So we're going to let this cook. Basically, we're going to cover it and we're going to let it come to like a simmer. And usually I let it boil for about 8 to 10 minutes. And then I pretty much turn it off because that's all the time that I typically have in my 1 hour lunch break to get it to that point. So we're going to take a pause and we'll be back to check on it in a few minutes. All right, everyone, we're back and it's been simmering for about 8 minutes and just sort of a rolling little simmer there. It's a bit more of an aggressive simmer just because I usually don't have a lot of time when I do this soup. If you have more time, you can always let it take a little longer. Usually with soups, the longer it cooks, the better, but that's the amount of time that I typically have. If you notice, I didn't salt it at all. I didn't add pepper. I didn't add any other herbs or spices. Feel free to do all of those things. I'll usually salt it once it's at the table. If I need salt, or I generally try and keep my food a little bit on the low sodium side. You'll definitely notice if you start cutting sodium back in your diet, you tend to want it a little bit less, and it's generally considered a little healthier. Got a bowl of some rice that I used in my Instant Pot, which I find to be a very useful kitchen tool. A lot of people are intimidated by the pressure cookers and the Instant Pots. I don't use it extensively for all sorts of creative recipes, but it does make rice really well. And I like that it's all metal. There's no Teflon, there's no nonstick chemicals, and it does a great job. You just put the ingredients in, set it for the time, walk away. It cooks it, it keeps it warm, and it's always cooked to perfection. So easy tool if you want to use rice, or like I said, you could use pasta, or you could do no carbohydrate if you don't want to put a carb in there. So this is what it's going to be. And it's just, I just layer it right on top. If you cook the rice or the pasta into the soup, it works great the first time you serve it. But if you store it and you have leftovers, which kind of the intention of this is that we have leftovers. So I'll have it for dinner sometimes, or my wife and I'll have it for lunch the next day. So it works out nicely. If you cook the starch in there and then you store it with the starch in there, the starch sort of sucks up all the liquid and then it becomes kind of mushy. So I prefer to keep my starches separate and then add it to the soup when I'm ready to go ahead and plate it. And that's it. I completely forgot to add the parsley while it was cooking. So we're going to do something different, and we're going to top it with the parsley, and we can even just sprinkle the rest in. So I've tasted this soup 1,000 times and it's really, really hot. So I'm not going to taste it right now on camera, but I assure you it's really good. So thanks for cooking with me, and I'll see you next time.